Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. Today I am back with my June reading journal video where I will be updating my trackers in my journal and I will be talking about everything I read in the month of June. I use a Yop and Tom in, I believe the colour is Blush Pink A5 for my reading journal. It is a dot grid. It works pretty well. I've spoken about it a number of times on my channel, so do check out other videos if you want my sort of full review of the journal. So the first tracker that I'm updating is my 100 books in 2023, and I believe in June I hit 54, so that's great. We're halfway through the year and on track for my 100. I do count books of all sizes in here, middle grades, mangas, graphic novels. I count my audiobooks. Don't let anybody tell you that none of that counts as reading. It does. So I do count everything here. And what I do is I have a key down the left-hand side, which is a bizarre key of a mixture of genre but also format. So I will definitely be changing this up for my 2024 reading journal because it just doesn't make any sense. But I have this printout from Etsy, which are Heartstopper leaves, and I made it black and white and then I colour them in based on the key. The printing doesn't work great for this. The outlines really smudge. So it definitely is not sort of my best work, this one, but it visually looks cute. It's just not perfect. But yeah, you can see I basically just add the colour for the book that I read, and they're numbered from 1 to 100. And then now I'm just updating my shelf tracker. So I got these shelf stickers from Thumbelina Print, who I really recommend for any kind of bullet journal or reading journal stickers. I really love their stuff, and I'm so excited that I have now filled out the left-hand side of this. It looks so good, doesn't it? I'm so happy to have a reading shelf tracker. This is basically the reason I've wanted a reading journal, is for this spread. So I absolutely love how this looks. I will be changing this up for 2024 though, because you can see that I have a colour code of 5 to 1 in colours that I think go with Heartstopper, because I was going to make a Heartstopper theme journal, but I only did that for one spread. But these colours really remind me of Heartstopper. The issue is that I rate the majority of books somewhere between 3 and 4.5 stars. So there's just a lot of blue and yellow. Like I don't think I've rated any books 1 star so far this year. So yeah, it doesn't work so great. So I wish that I had done a bigger mix of colours and use them for half stars, but you know, we live, we learn. But I think it looks really cute anyway, and it is nice to really visually see where my 5 stars are. And we did have a 5-star read in June, so I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit about that one. So there is 50 books on each side. So yeah, that's how you can visually see, 54 that I got to. It's a bit confusing for me to talk to you about June because I am doing this video on the 9th of July in my time. So I am a little bit further on. I finished a couple of books since this point, but it's all good. So I'm just colouring in the flower pots there as well because, you know, we're a little bit like we've passed those parts of the bookshelf, so I'm colouring those in as well, which is really fun. Then after this I will be updating my series trackers. So what I've done for these is written the name of the series, and then I have the number of hearts based on how many books there's in the series, and then I colour them in when I'm through them. I'm not entirely sure why I do this because I use the core pile spreadsheet from Book Roast anyway, so I have a much better and accurate way of tracking my series through that. So it's a little bit silly really that I do this as well. Also, the issue with this is I don't put the author's name. And I realised while doing this, I've written the front desk series on this tracker, and then I have another one after these pages as well. So that's a bit embarrassing. So I'm now also updating my 23 in 2023, and I did do a video about that. And I read 2 of those in June. So we've made a little bit of progress. It would be good if I could make a bit more. We did make a bit of progress. So now let us move on to setting up my June pages. So on the right hand side, I'm setting up my June cover page. These stickers are also from Thumbelina Print, and the way that I decorate these is I just have a look at how she has them stuck down in the listing image, and then I just vaguely copy them because I'm just not adventurous enough to attempt to decorate them in my own way. And then on the left hand side, I just have a summary of how my reading went in that month. So I read 10 books in June, which is great because May I only read 4, so we had a much better June. And so I'm putting those books along the top, and then underneath I'm putting the 4 books that I'm carrying over, 2 of which have been carrying over. I mean, in the case of Ariadne, for like a year and a half. Jade Legacy, we're probably at 6 months, if not more. Legend Born I have now finished, so I finished it in July, and Belladonna I have about 2 hours left of the audiobook, so you'll be hearing about those ones in the July reading wrap up. So now I'm doing my stats page. This is my favorite page for each month where I put together all of my stats. So the way that I do these and my book covers is I print everything. Well, I basically make a Google Doc where I make all of the graphs and stuff, and I use the Corpal spreadsheet from Books Rose with some adaptations from my fiance to make it more month focused. I move them into a Google Doc, and then I print that out on sticker paper and I trim it and cut it out. It's really not exact, and it's not the visually best thing I could do, but it really works for me. I don't want my reading journal to become too much, so I like that it's relatively low-key. In the top left-hand corner, I've got the June sticker, that's from Planner Face, and then I do have the stickers underneath and the bottom right-hand corner calendar, which are from Coffee Monsters Co. They don't go with this spread at all. That's the downside of using like the stickers from other people that are not matching the Thumbelina print stuff, but it's fine. I don't really care that much, and I've been doing it pretty consistent. Well, I've been doing it every single month of the reading journal, so I decided to just keep going with it, particularly with those little calendars in the bottom right. If I don't use them this year, I will never use them, so I decided to just push forward with it. So in terms of my stats, so as I said, I read 10 books and I read a total of 3,041 pages. So that's pretty much on par for what I read per month. I read 2 audiobooks and 8 physical books. So again, pretty normal. 8 of those were part of a series, of course. Doubt it was finishing any. And 2 were standalones. For genres, I read 5 romance, that's normal, that's my favourite genre, 1 mystery, 2 fantasy, 1 contemporary and 1 biography, so a little bit more of an interesting mix for you for this month. For days it took the book, the longest was Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which took me 27 days, which for a romance is unnecessary, we'll talk about it. And the shortest I read 4 back-to-back graphic novels, they all took 1 day each. And then for book length, the longest book, well, in fact, 3 of them were all 384 pages. So Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Laura Olympus Volume 3, and Falling Hard for the Royal Guard were all 384 pages. How bizarre is that? And then the 2 DC Teen Titans books were the shortest at 208. For book format, I read 5 novels, 4 graphic novels, very graphic novel heavy this month, and 1 non-fiction, which was the biography. For how I got it, 2 of them I listened to on Audible, and then 8 of them were on my own TBR. I am getting a Kindle for my birthday from my fiance because he's the bestest. So that'll be a bit more visually interesting from August onwards. Purchased from, I got 1 from The Works, 3 from Amazon, 3 from Waterstones, 1 other, and 2 Audible. I like the others to be higher than Amazon, so it's not too bad, but I would like it to be a little bit better. And then for stars, I gave 4 stars, 1 2.5, 1 5, 1 3, 1 4.5, 2 3.5. So very mixed, but all good, right? All well, apart from the 2.5. We'll get there. And then for age, I read 3 YA, which were the 2 DC comics and Check Please, and then 7 adult. So let us talk about the books. So first up, I read Luck and Last Resorts by Sarah Grunder Ruiz. This one, to be honest, I actually read most of it in May when I was on my cruise around the Norwegian fjords. But I finished it on the 1st of June, and therefore it all counts towards my June reads because that's just how I do my reading wrap-ups. So this is about Nina and Ollie, and it's the second in a series. I read the first one literally directly before this, again while I was on the cruise, because they're about people who work on big yachts, and that was the closest I could get to cruise books. Turns out a lot of books are not set on cruises, so a bit of a gap in the market there. So this one is about Nina and Ollie, who we do meet in the first book, and they've been kind of on and off again for like 10 years. Ollie finally wants to settle down with Nina, but she still feels that she can't commit, and Ollie is getting really frustrated about that, and so a lot of it is about them sort of fighting, getting back together and figuring out if they can make things work. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it slightly more than the first one because the first one was so grief heavy. This one was not the same. Nina and Ollie both are going through some life stuff. They both have complicated life histories, but not enough that it was like making me cry. It was just kind of general romance background. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. Then, and gave it 4 stars. Then the next one was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So this is one of my 23 in 2023 because I own all 3 books in this series. And this one is about Chloe and Red. So Chloe has fibromyalgia and she's kind of, that obviously has a big impact on her life. She's become a recluse. She finally moves out from her parental home. She decides that she wants to live a more exciting life, and she comes up with a list of basically on how to get a life, and she ends up clashing with the very attractive superintendent of her flat, Red Morgan, who ends up offering to help her with the list. I don't know why this took me a month to read. It's so unnecessary. It's good. It's really well written. Talia Hibbert, I think, is an excellent writer. And I felt that both Chloe and Red had interesting backgrounds. The steamy scenes were really well written, very good. If you like a steamy book, I would recommend this. So yeah, but I felt like I could only give it 4 stars because any romance that takes me a month to read, it's probably not a 5-star. But I'm excited to read the other 2 in the series. Then I listened to Death at Wentwater Court by Carola Dunn. This is free on Audible, and I started listening to it while I was on the cruise because I'd finished my audiobook and forgot that you couldn't easily get internet. So I just had to very quickly, when we got internet in one of the ports, download a free audiobook, and I think I didn't have any Audible credits left. This is about Daisy, who is a photographer, and she's visiting Wentwater House to photograph their house for a lifestyle magazine, and she does know the family, and she ends up involved in the murder. And this book is, I don't like the narration. I didn't like the audiobook narrator at all. It's an American audiobook narrator of a posh British household, and it doesn't work. And the murder happens, I would say, maybe 2/3 of the way through. No, sorry, the result of the murder happens about 2/3 of the way through, and I felt it was a really unsatisfying end, and it was a really weird mixture of characters. There was a little bit of a romance plot for Daisy in there, which was kind of what kept me going, and obviously I didn't have anything better to do while I was on the cruise, but yeah, unfortunately I didn't love this one, and I would maybe carry on with the series if I was desperate, but yeah, not for me really. Then the next one was my 5 stars. So this is Beast Boy Loves Raven by Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo. This is the 3rd book in the DC Teen Titans graphic novel series. So Gar and Raven, we had both of their stories already, and they have both ended up in Nashville to look for Slade to figure out why they've both, suddenly got these powers. And they end up running into each other. Gar falls in love with Raven instantly. She is like, dude, you are not for me. But they keep running into each other. He helps her out. They end up spending some time together. It's adorable. Max, who is Raven's foster cousin, is also looking out for them. Apologize for the dog barking. Is looking out for them, and then she ends up running into Damian Wayne, who is linked to Bruce Wayne, and it's just, I really love this one. It was so cute. The art is absolutely beautiful in this series. So, and this one in particular I loved as much as I loved Raven. I only gave Gar's story 3 stars. Raven is really the one for me. She's what kind of keeps me going. I just love the way she's written. I think Cami Garcia, who's the author, just really gets Raven, you can tell, and so I really love reading her story. So then this was followed by reading Robin, which is the most up-to-date one in this series, which is where we are then introduced to Dick Grayson, who is the adopted son of Bruce Wayne, Batman. And Damian and Dick do not get on at all, but Damian runs away when he's helping Max and Gar and Raven, and so Dick then kind of decides to tag along to look out for he does consider Damian to be his brother. Damian hates Dick, but they kind of deal with it through the course of this graphic novel, and the story does move on a bit in this one. I only gave this one 3 stars though because there's just less Raven. I just didn't like this one as much. The pacing was very weird in this one. The art didn't feel quite the same. It didn't hit the same. It just felt like maybe it was a little bit rushed, and given that we only get one of these per year, it's really disappointing to think that they're rushed. And this was a collective opinion. This one has lower scores than the other 3, so we are getting, I think it's Stargirl next year, so I really hope that this will be a return to form for that one, because I'm a bit sad about it. Then I read Check Please, Sticks and Stones, which is volume 2 in Check Please, and this is the last one in the series. So this was great. Actually, I finished 2 series in June, so that's pretty good. And at the end of Check Please 1, we end on this massive cliffhanger, which gets very quickly resolved in Volume 2. And then we spend a bit more time with Bitty, who is a, like, figure skater who ends up being kind of, what's the word, like, sought out for the ice hockey team at Samuel University. And this is following, I think American degrees are 4 years, so this is following the sort of last 2 years of his degree. And it's following his feelings for Jack, who used to be captain of the hockey team but has now become a professional player, and how that impacts the house, the like ice hockey house that Bitty is still at. Yeah, this series is cute. I preferred this one to the first one, I think, because I had a bit more understanding of hockey from the first one. The first one, there were times where I felt a little bit on the outside. I felt a little bit like I wasn't totally involved in the story, but the second half of the first, kind of after the main story happens in the first novel, you get a load of background about hockey, which really helps give some context. So I think my enjoyment was higher for this one because of that. I still think that this series has some pacing issues because it's told through a kind of YouTube video format. And so you skip a lot of stuff that happens and you are kind of only there for like peak moments and you don't get as much of the time passing stuff. So I don't think it's perfect, but I did enjoy the second part of this series. And it's quite cozy. If you like Heartstopper, I think you might like it. Then I carried on my graphic novel reading. So my final graphic novel of the month was Lore Olympus Volume 3 by Rachel Smythe. So I think most people have heard of Lore Olympus, but if you haven't, it is a Hades and Persephone retelling. And it's a lot of mutual pining. If you like really, really slow burns, Lore Olympus is a really, really slow burn. This one I enjoyed though because Persephone begins an internship in the underworld, so she's working for Hades. So there's this added dynamic of, oh, he's her boss and what that involves. There are major trigger warnings for this series. There's a lot that Persephone is dealing with, a lot that a lot of the characters are dealing with. It's very grown up, but I like that about it. The art is beautiful. Each of the gods have their own colours, and so it just makes for really visually interesting art. Volume 4 has arrived. I now own Volume 4, so I may have to go read it when I finish this video, you know. I love this series, and I gave this one like 4.5/4.75 stars, which really I can only mark it as 4.5 because 4.75 is just silly. I need to either make a decision that I'm rating something 4.5 or 5. I think for me this series is a 4.5 because, to be honest, I need Hades and Persephone to be more together now. It's just this it's so slow moving. So I'm really hoping that in Volume 4 we get a little bit more action between them because that's what I want to see. Then I finished the audiobook for Beyond the Wand, which is the autobiography from Tom Felton, and I really, really enjoyed this. I would really, really recommend this as a listen. So Tom narrates it. He's a slightly dramatic narrator, but it kind of works. And it's a very honest representation of his life. The first part is all about kind of him, you know, his childhood life and his family life, which is quite complex, his family life. And then he gets obviously cast in Harry Potter. And so then the huge chunk of it is about Harry Potter, but it's really not just about Harry Potter, to be honest. I think it's well split up to be about those sort of three: pre-Harry Potter, during Harry Potter, and post-Harry Potter. And it's post-Harry Potter that I think is the most interesting because Tom has clearly suffered with addiction issues and major mental health issues, as have other members of his family. And it's so raw, it's so honest, and yeah, I think this was really good. It always feels a bit weird to rate memoirs, but I rated it 4 stars because I think it's really good, and I think it's well worth a listen. I mean, if you don't like Harry Potter, you may not find it interesting because, like, obviously a reasonable amount of it is about Harry Potter, but I really, really enjoyed it. Then I read The Impossible Princess by Kira Dominguez. This is another book on my 23 and 2023 because that cover is drawn by Leni Kaufman, who is my favourite book cover artist, and I loved it so much, and I thought it might give me like Princess Diaries vibes. So this is about Clara and Max, and Clara is the youngest of the royal family of Sondmark, and she is kind of the slightly rogue princess. She is a real party animal while she's at university, but now she's back, she's ready to commit to her duties. When she's doing an official ceremony, her heel gets stuck in the pavement, and Lieutenant Max is there being like given an award or something, and he saves her, and instantly the two of them have a connection. And so whilst Clara is trying to commit and be a good princess, she is distracted by this very attractive lieutenant. And I did really enjoy this. I really enjoyed the premise of the story, but again, it has some pacing issues. And the real thing for me is it felt like I was missing a whole chunk of the book. I really don't like feeling like an outsider when I'm reading. And it kept referring to things that I was like, is this not the first book in the series? Should I have more understanding of this than I do? And that, again, was a common thing that was mentioned in reviews. So unfortunately, I couldn't give it above 3.5 stars because I just felt that, you know, I was a bit left out, but I'm interested to read the other books in the series. And then last up, I read Falling Hard for the Royal Guard by Megan Clausen. I think this is going to be like a TikTok viral book. I get a lot of Instagram ads for this book. That's how I discovered it. And this is about Maggie, who lives in the Tower of London. She always feels like a real outsider. She doesn't really have any friends. She's bullied by her co-workers. She really only kind of talks to like the other inhabitants of the Tower of London. And then one day she meets a guardsman called Freddie, who just really like instantly attracts her attention. And I don't know if you know this, but in the UK, royal guards have to be like completely straight-faced, and you can like, people do try and like make them laugh and stuff, but they're not allowed to, and you shouldn't do that obviously, but people do. And so it's actually about Maggie discovering sort of the real person behind the guardsman, and Freddie is not quite who he says he is, and she ends up becoming friends with the other guardsmen and building a relationship with them. And it's about her sort of finding her voice again, getting over this breakup with a guy who she breaks up with before the book starts. And I love the idea of this. I love the Tower of London setting, though it was a little bit complicated at times to visualize where they were, but there is a map at the front, so it is there to help. I needed a bit more Maggie and Freddie. There is no steam in this book, and I could have done with a bit of that. I just needed a bit more like her and Freddie cute moments. Freddie is absent for a big chunk of the book. A lot of it's just her pining over where Freddie is, and I just felt like that was a little bit odd, because it's like, well, is it a romance then if she doesn't really have this thing with Freddie? And then with her and Freddie at the end, it goes from like 0 to 100 very quickly. And as cute as that is, and the epilogue was so cute, you're like, I haven't really had that like lead up to it, so that was a bit of a shame. But it was well written. Like overall, it needed a bit more editing, I think, but like I would definitely read more from the author Megan. So that is everything that I read. So the last thing that I am doing is I always donate to a charity every month. Based on the number of pages that I read, I donate £1 for every 100 pages that I read. And this was inspired by JD Ray Reads, who does this for Polathon. So for June, I did this to Mind Out, which is an LGBTQ plus charity in the UK, because June was Pride Month. So I wanted to donate to an LGBTQ plus charity. So that is everything. I really hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, I would really appreciate a like. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe. I will have links to the shops I've mentioned today in the description. And I will also have a link to my Instagram and my Goodreads if you would like to check out any more content from me. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye.